Thanks, Iman. Thanks everybody for being here. Welcome. I'm David Okun. I work for IBM as a developer advocate. And I mostly help around with the Swift on a Server team. I get involved with a couple of different business units and things to do with Watson. And I'd love to chat with y'all more about what I do and what we can do to help you. But I wanted to start by really actually telling you a story. So is anybody here from Texas? Texas? Okay. Keep your hands up. If you're from Houston, keep your hand up. No. Okay, so I'm from Houston, Texas. And if you watch the news, you probably saw that this is what Houston looked like summer of 2017. This was what happened when Hurricane Harvey hit. This was on par with Hurricane Katrina in terms of like one of the most damaging hurricanes that's ever happened in the United States. It's hard to really estimate these things, but $125 billion in damages to different properties. And you can see here, this is pretty close actually to my neighborhood at home where I used to live. That La Madeleine on the left, I've been there a bunch of times. There's a Fuzzy's Pizza shop around the corner. This is close to home, and this is about a meter of water that you have here. 30,000 people all over Houston were displaced from their homes. I was very fortunate that no one in my family was displaced from their homes specifically, but this was a real thing that a lot of people had to deal with, and it was all over the news. Some places got as much as a meter of rain. There was a town out on one of the suburbs of Texas called Nederland that actually got 1.5 meters of rain, which is quite a lot to think about. And so as a result of this hurricane, a lot of different things, a lot of different people used a lot of different resources to try to find ways to help out. One thing you may have heard of is actually there were this group of people who had these swamp boats in Louisiana that brought them over and started going around the streets of Houston rescuing people. They called themselves the Cajun Navy. But another story that I think is important to go over is what my mom had to deal with. So again, my mom is okay. She didn't have to deal with anything getting flooding in her house. But she was on Nextdoor.com. By the show of hands if you've ever been on Nextdoor.com. Okay, Nextdoor, for those that may not know, Nextdoor.com is a community website for different neighborhoods that people are living in, and it just lets you say like, hey, I saw this, did anybody lose a cat? Or hey, I saw this car accident somewhere. Just a community to keep in touch within your neighborhood. And my mom was very fortunately unaffected by this hurricane. Her house was generally pretty dry. But she was on Nextdoor looking at people that were asking for help, and she decided to step into action, see, where can I go, maybe help pick people up or something like that. One story she remembers is that at 12 in the morning, her friend Kevin said, I'm living up in the Heights, which is a neighborhood about 20 minutes northwest of where my mom was in Houston. And she said, he said, can somebody help? My grandparents are stuck in a house in this neighborhood where my mom used to be, and can somebody please go and help them? And she thought, I can help, but we need a boat. And that's a real sentence she actually had to say, was we need a boat if we're going to get to their house to go check on them. So somebody, ironically next door, happened to have a canoe, so they said, okay, let's go see how close we can get to the house. So at 1 in the morning, and I'm just going to quote her here because I asked her for just some facts on the story. I don't want to misrepresent her. She said, we drove as far as we could, waded through some scary water to meet up with Kevin. Then we paddled his canoe through the streets of our neighborhood to get to the elderly couple. The water was as high as street signs in some places, and the reflection in the water of the flooded houses from the moon was surreal. So think if you're rowing down your street at 1 in the morning and what you can see, and that can be a pretty scary thing to have to go through. And I can tell you the big picture here is actually one my mom took with her phone. The one on the right is it's just actually 2 blocks down from where my mom lives, but it's taken by the local newspaper, and that just goes to show how crazy high the water was. So they managed to get to the couple's house, and they were sitting there at their computer with water starting to come in, and they had to tell them, please, we need to get out. There's rising water. We need to get you out. We need to turn the circuit breakers off. And so they said, okay, well, we don't want to turn the lights off because what if somebody comes and breaks into our house? And you think, well, how crazy could you be to be worried about that when you're in a life and death situation? But it just goes to show what people are thinking about, and that when then fight or flight kicks in, what you have to actually think about in terms of self-preservation. And then the last tidbit to the story is that they remarked that Kevin got his grandparents, and they had to drive back on the left side of the highway on Loop 610 just to get back up to the Heights. And if you're British, you may think, well, okay, no big deal. But that's a big deal when you think that one side of the highway isn't right, and what am I going to do driving down the highway if I'm in the wrong place? So this was an example of how my mom was able to use something like Nextdoor.com to be able to help out. But it got IBM thinking, and I'm not going to say that this story specifically got IBM thinking, but it was worth it to think, well, what are some of the other ways that we as developers can help out? You know, we are very fortunate to know some of the skills that we know, and we have a wealth of technologies at our disposal. So given that you have a situation like this, and just a simple social network was able to, I'm not going to say save somebody's life, but able to help somebody get rescued, you might be thinking, well, is there an opportunity for us to be able to use what we know how to do to be able to help out as well? And IBM have actually been working on, it's a hackathon called Call for Code. And I'll show you the link to get involved right now, but it's a $200,000 cash prize for the grand prize winner. It's sponsored by the United Nations and IBM. And the winner last year was this project called Project OWL. And basically what they did was they had IoT devices that could connect to each other with cell connections in case you're in an area where you don't have cell connection and you need to get help. So I would recommend going online to look at how this works, but this is an opportunity to get involved and see how you can use different IBM technologies to be able to help out. And on that topic, we have a lot of activity going on this week. So later at 2 o'clock, Chris Bailey and I will be doing a book signing of a book we worked on for server-side Swift. Feel free to come by our booth for that. If you have questions about that, we're happy to talk about that. Nick Bordakos is coming on after me to give a talk about how to use Watson visual recognition and TensorFlow to be able to do object detection on iOS. And there's a lot of opportunities to learn about some different things that we have going on. Again, Chris will be talking about server-side Swift State of the Union. We have another lab later from Merrick about doing mobile backends with serverless. But there's a lot of opportunities to be able to help. And I think going through these labs that we're going to have tomorrow, so we're going to have one from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. tomorrow, and then another lab from 1 to 4. And if you follow me on Twitter, we'll be tweeting out what those Git repos are so that you can clone those before you get into the lab, just in case, I don't know, conference Wi-Fi happens to not work out. So we'll be doing that tomorrow all day so you can learn how to use these sets of technologies. And I can tell you that the Katura lab is going to be focused on how to set up push notifications, but without the push notifications. So that's going to be a scenario in which you could create a potential rescue opportunity for somebody. And then also tomorrow, if you have tickets to go see James Dempsey tomorrow, come stop by us tomorrow and come check out our reception. We have all these different labs about ordering specific kinds of beers, a different kind of scavenger hunt app that we've released, some custom object detection with Watson, but ultimately we have beer. So please come get some of that and then go head over to the breakpoints and see them. This is the slide you want to take a picture of, so go ahead and pull out your phones. If you want to get involved, again, feel free to come talk to us. We have a lot of different things that we can show you how to get started. But if you'd like to get involved with this and see how you can use IBM tech and see if it's possible to make a difference, then this is a good place for you to check it out and get started. There's a lot of fun things happening with it, and I encourage you to get started. We're still in the middle of the hackathon period, so you're able to make your submissions still and look at what you're doing. Tomorrow, ironically, is coincidentally, is World Environment Day. So that's one of our things that we're promoting tomorrow. And World Humanitarian Day is August 19th, and it goes all the way through to the end of July when you have to turn in your submission. I'm here to answer questions if you have any, but we've got a lot of people helping out with this. And especially with all the things that were released yesterday, it would be really cool to see what we can do and see if we can contribute back and help somebody out. But if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take some now, but we'll be at the booth. But thank you so much for your time.
Right on. All right, thank you, David. If anyone has any questions, please just raise your hand, and I'll be sure to get the mic over to you. There you go.
Hi, can you give a quick idea of the types of things that you offer, I guess, through Watson, like, image, messaging, payment processing, whatever?
So we're a fully functional, so that's a good question. So he asked me, what kind of things do IBM Cloud provide? So we do have a public cloud where you can deploy all sorts of applications, including Swift applications as well. We have a Kubernetes service, so what you just learned about on Mac Stadium, you can take those same Helm charts and use them on our Kubernetes service if you'd like. A lot of the Watson APIs, like visual recognition, is one of the things that you could train with that. We're interested to see, with what was announced yesterday about CreateML, how that works together. And to give you an example, one idea that I wish I had the time to do myself, but I don't at the moment. But a free idea is, what if you had a drone that could fly through the streets of your neighborhood and have an iPhone camera pointing down and see water, no water? You could make a map of your neighborhood in case there's a flood. That could be one way to help out. So, and that certainly would have been helpful to my mom 2 years ago. So that's some of the things that you can use, and happy to show you the whole suite of products we have later on if you'd like to see. Anyone else?
Right. Raise hands. Questions? All right, everyone give David a hand.